And Indu, I'll let you take on the next introduction.
Sure, thanks, Leah. I'm Indu Radhakrishnan. I am a new addition to the mental health first aid team at MHAMD. I will actually be assuming a lot of Leah's current roles as she transitions to a new project within our organization. And I'm really excited to be here. And Mary, if you want to go next.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mary Wachanski. I'm the Chief Program Officer at MHAMD. I'm really delighted that so many of you are interested in teen mental health first aid. I have been involved with mental health first aid overall for about a decade, and so I'm really excited about this opportunity in Maryland. And I'm going to pass it to Anne, who is going to be our presenter of the day. Anne.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Leah and Indu, for all your hard work on this. Thank you, everybody on this call, for taking time out of your day to learn about this new program. We at the Mental Health Association of Maryland are thrilled to be rolling teen mental health first aid out in our state. We are going to go through a slide deck with information which will hopefully answer the majority of your questions. Then we will have a Q&A afterwards. It is fantastic to see so many familiar faces, so many new faces. This work is very exciting and has never been more timely. We know that our teens struggled prior to the pandemic. We also know how much more acutely mental health challenges have been affecting the lives of our teens and our nation and our world as we have all weathered this global trauma together, now entering its third year. We know teens are talking to each other. And the goal of this program is to equip teens in the way that we equip adults in mental health first aid, to hone noticing skills, to have the tools necessary to engage in those conversations that might not take place without this set of tools. We know that if people don't know what to do, they often do nothing. That is true of our adults. It's often also true of our teens. I'll be talking to you a little bit more about the really, really promising research that is about to be unfolded officially in this sector with respect to the kind of impact that this teen mental health first aid class has had on the schools where the piloting was done. So with that as a way of introduction, again, thank you for being here. I'm going to share my screen. We are going to go through the teen mental health first aid slide deck. Hopefully that will answer your questions. And then if there are any more at the end, we are going to answer them then. So I have my slides up and let's begin. So as we've said, welcome. We're so glad you're all here. The agenda for our presentation is as follows. We're going to talk about an overview introduction, implementation requirements, which are specific to mental health first aid, the teen version, and different than the implementation requirements in connection with the adult and youth curricula with which many of you are familiar. We'll talk about what was involved in becoming an instructor and in the application process. So we do have our one-page overview as we have for youth and adult. And I'm going to ask Leah when she sends out the slide deck, the presentation recording, to also provide that to you as well. Super exciting with respect to kind of the genesis of this project. It is a project that has been supported by Lady Gaga's Born This Way Foundation, which is fabulous and also exciting in terms of having kind of buy-in from the multitude of people who are, like myself, Lady Gaga fans. So why teen mental health first aid? The statistic that we all see in the youth and the adult class is that 1 in 5. And 1 in 5 teens in the US will experience a mental health challenge by the time they are 18 is the research that we are using at the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, which of course, like our adult and youth classes, is the parent organization for this curriculum. Obviously, we have all been reading the paper, and during the pandemic, that this number is almost assuredly low, but a significant number of our teens are going to face a mental health challenge by the time they are 18. We know from the research that many mental health challenges emerge in adolescence. So the more eyes we have on our teens, the better. And we know that teens are talking to each other, as we said earlier. So this, I think, is really an arresting slide and for me, a super depressing statistic. So here is the numbers in the US and Australia / the UK about who is asking for help. So here in Australia and the UK, you've got 65% of your teens asking for help, 35 not asking for help. Look at the US. The numbers are flipped. 65% of the young people polled for this research had not sought help in any given year, and only 35% had. Those numbers are unacceptable, and this curriculum is part of an effort to get more youth connected to care. We know the sooner that we can connect an individual to care, the easier recovery will be, the greater the likelihood of a quick improvement resolution to the condition. Early intervention, a key theme across mental health first aid. We need to do better with our youth than we are currently doing. Another really interesting slide, look at this. So help-seeking behavior in young people, 49% are going to go to a friend. 48% are going to go to a parent. 32% to a romantic partner. Look at these numbers for teacher, other school staff. These are numbers that we need to get up. Think about how much time our teachers and our school staff and our folks who work with youth and youth serving organizations are spending with our youth. These are folks who've got eyes on our youth, who can be tapped in as resources if we can change the culture around to whom a youth will feel comfortable going to for assistance. So let's just talk about some of the logistical constraints around the curriculum as a whole. The audience for this training is high school students, grades 10 to 12, ages 15 to 18. Now that 18 number is not a cap. So if you have a school or a youth serving organization that has individuals who are in high school, but who are older than 18, that's okay. As long as your youth is still connected to a high school, still a senior, even if that youth is older than 18, that's not a structure, that's not a barrier. The structure has been designed to be convenient to curricula for youth. So it's broken into either 3 90-minute sessions or 6 45-minute sessions. There is blended and virtual delivery coming soon. It was initially rolled out in person only. The teaching notes and materials are divided into one set of teaching notes for the 3 90 minutes and one set for the 6 at 45. Organizations that are able to deliver the curriculum are here. So schools and school districts, organizations partnering with the school, youth serving organizations or community sites. So very significant and different than the adult and the youth curricula that we have, with which we are familiar. We need to create, the goal is to create a culture. So it is not the case that we can deliver this youth curriculum to the community in general. We are trying to, organization by organization, school by school, create a culture where the youth have shared language and where the adults who work with the youth have the shared language. And that's another requirement that we're going to get to in a second. But it is not a curriculum that can be offered by individuals to the community at large, which is a big difference from the curricula with which we're already familiar. Now, the learning objectives are going to, for those of you familiar with mental health first aid, are going to seem a little bit more recognizable. We're working to improve the noticing skills in our youth communities, helping individuals recognize what might be early warning signs that a friend or a peer is developing a mental health challenge. We also want to work to enhance noticing skills around the potential crisis of suicide. So working to recognize warning signs that an individual might be developing a crisis, a mental health crisis, particularly suicide. We use a version, and I'm going to go through this, of the ALGE algorithm to give youth the tools to start those difficult conversations, to talk to a friend about what that friend might be experiencing, and then to help that friend find the help that they need, which involves getting a responsible adult involved. So while we want to empower our youth to recognize and to have those conversations, we are not asking them to shoulder the burden of connecting their friend to care. We are asking them to then identify a respected or responsible, a trusted adult who can assist with that transition to care. Remember, we are also working with youth who are not necessarily emancipated, although the new laws have changed around when a youth can self-refer. Anytime, as we know, we are in a school setting, we are working with protocols and policies that, if you will recall, always will trump our mental health first aid obligations as adults. But with youth, we are giving them the ability to connect to that adult, that trusted adult, which, and we're going to talk about this in a second, is why there's a requirement at each of the implementing sites that 10% of the adults on staff at that implementing site, that school, that organization that works with youth, have been trained in the module, the youth mental health first aid curriculum for adults assisting young people. So the idea is that we are then creating that community where 10% of the adults have been trained in youth mental health first aid. They are often identified by, for example, a lanyard around their neck, or there will be a list where the youth can go and they'll say, oh, Mrs. Jones and Mr. Smith, they're mental health first aid trained. Let's go talk to them. The idea being that the youth will have the shared language, the adults will have the shared language, and they'll be able to connect at a level that is comfortable for the youth and for the assistant, the individual whom that youth may be assisting. We give the youth information about where to find help, helpful resources, and then we work through that special teen action plan, which is coming up. So instead of ALGE, the action plan is look for warning signs, ask how your friend is doing, listen up, help connect with adult, and then your friendship is important. So that's that critical follow along. Once you've helped your friend connect to an adult, you're not sort of hands off at that point. You are still your friend's friend, supporting them as they go through whatever transition to care, maybe their particular path. They do a little rhythmic clapping thing. So it's look, ask, listen, help your friend. Don't say it too often to yourself, because it will get stuck in your mind and you will be cursing my name. So I don't want that to happen, but it's infectious. It'll stay with them. So this is the ALGE. This is the new ALGE. Look, ask, listen, help your friend. So again, teen mental health first aid doesn't teach us to diagnose any more than adult or youth does. It's about being supportive, encouraging friends to seek help, knowing when it's time to get somebody else involved. Some of the core themes are the same. Mental health challenges are common in teens. We go over the impact of health challenges on teens, and we have that hope and resilience message that is so critical, so core to mental health first aid, and which we know is so missing in many conversations around the topic of mental health. But we are empowering the teens to support one another with that hopeful message. We are resilient. Help is out there. You don't have to feel this way. Let's work together to see what resources we can bring to bear. There is a terrific new video around suicide. I have to say, and I'm not just saying this, it is the best of the mental health first aid videos I have ever seen. We give it with a warning. This is a very challenging video. Please know that it works out okay in the end. But a terrific video with two young people walking through a conversation where one of them is having thoughts of suicide. We work on giving teens the tools to help each other in other types of crisis, threats of violence, harm, non-suicidal self-injury, experiencing a traumatic event such as bullying, which is an entirely new section. None of the other curricula have had anything about bullying, abuse, assault, and we practice, as we practice in the other classes, sort of practical application of the tools and the algorithm as we go along. We talk about substance use crises. We talk about, as we said, that incredibly important message of recovery and resilience. And I'm just gonna say right now that the preliminary research coming out of the pilot sites has been very, very promising. Individuals who have taken the class are significantly more likely to ask an individual whom they think might be having suicidal thoughts after taking the class than before. Individuals learn that asking about suicide won't put the idea of suicide in someone's head, and where about 20% of the quiz respondents thought that maybe that would happen, only 8% afterwards. So a drop of 100% in that misperception. Individuals, it's substantially more likely to connect or to suggest to a friend that they connect to an adult after taking the class than before, and 92% of the participants who took the class would recommend it to a peer. There is more information coming out. The research is not completely formalized. There will be more details, but certainly the curricula has been shown to have the same effect that the youth and the adult curriculum have with our adult populations, which is it enhances your noticing skills, increases your willingness to intervene in a way to help your friend, and provides you with a set of resources and a feeling of agency that you may not have had before. So for those implementing sites who qualify, and let's just remember that that is schools, school districts, organizations that work with school districts, or organizations that serve youth. Where this slide deck is a national deck, really you are going to contact me, and we are going to work through the implementation requirements and the degree to which your agency has satisfied them. We will then work to connect you to the council. Only organizations that have been approved as implementing sites can train instructors. So this again is a major difference from the structure that we've had in the past, where individuals can be youth or adult instructors on their own, delivering the class to the community. So once you have been approved as an implementing site, remember that will mean that you will have had 10% of your entire staff trained in youth mental health first aid. You will be then able to connect for instructor trainings, which ultimately are going to be held through the Mental Health Association of Maryland. So I know I've said this before, but it's critical. We're going to talk about implementation requirements again. So sophomores to seniors, target age 15 to 18, or seniors who are older than 18. The class size for that in-person class, 5 to 30 teens. Another really critical point is that you cannot just train a few people in any given grade. If you are approved as an implementing site, you will need to teach your entire grade level or all the teens in the setting. So for example, if you were the Boys and Girls Club of Annapolis, you would need to train all of the teens between who are sophomores to seniors in your programs. If you are Dumbarton High School in Towson and you're going to train your juniors, you have to train every junior. It can't just be Mrs. Smith's health class. The reason for that is that we, again, are trying to create this community, this cohort who shares the same ability to see and understand that common language, so powerful, so necessary to create the culture of noticing, normalizing of discussions around mental health first aid, and taking the steps. There's that 10% of your staff trained. There are some student and teen safety protocols. There's an entire pamphlet about protocols. One of the protocols is that you invite parents and guardians to a pre-class discussion so that individuals who are caring for the youth who will be trained know what's going on. Another protocol is that you will need to have a mental health professional available on site while the training is going on. You will also have an exit ticket at every class where each teen will identify how that teen is feeling and whether that teen wants to be connected to care. No class can be held in the last period of the day because if a teen does want to connect to care, we have to make sure that there's enough time for that teen to connect to the mental health professional on site if that teen has been heightened by the material. So a real strong culture around the safety of our youth in this curriculum. If you are an implementing site, you will sign a contract with the National Council affirming that you have met these requirements and committing that your site will teach with fidelity and adhere going forward with all the implementation requirements. If you are not an implementing site, you cannot purchase materials. So that contract becoming an implementing site allows you access to the materials, again, also to having your staff trained. This pricing is really for the National Council's classes, so really not relevant for us, but interesting that the council is now bundling the materials with the class and that they have about a 1 instructor to 125 student ratio. In order for individuals who are certified as teen mental health first aid instructors to maintain their certification, they will need to have to teach 3 classes a year. Should not be a problem in the implementing sites where you're teaching multiple students in different classes. Another thing to bear in mind when considering for schools is the number of classes that are necessary to deliver this curriculum will need to probably be set aside in the year before when that school is doing its scheduling. So there is a pretty long on-ramp for both making sure that the staff are trained, but also making sure that the school has set aside time in the school day for this class to take place. So with respect to instructors, the council wants individuals who have experience with youth, working with youth in a professional setting, who are experienced presenters, who are already certified as a youth mental health first aider in the adults assisting youth curriculum prior to becoming a trained teen instructor, and a working knowledge or interest in mental health is recommended. So the instructor training currently is the 3-day model like we have for the virtual classes delivered in youth and adult. There's a pre-work requirement where you watch the curriculum modeled. On day 1, you unpack the curriculum. We really dive in on day 1 to the student safety and sort of the classroom management logistics. We work on the teach back guidance in the afternoon and assign that teach back. So from this point on, pretty similar to what you've seen before in youth and adult. On the next day, we review the rubric. We break up into groups and pairs for coaching. And then the rest of the day is working on coaching. And then that final day is a teach back. Now, the curriculum that you're looking at here is in person. There is another day currently in the schedule for being trained to deliver this curriculum virtually. As with the youth and adult, you get that Padfolio flash drive, you get the PowerPoint, the different kind of teaching notes. And then here's that, with those pricings that you saw with the council, the teen manual for each learner, and an implementation toolkit for the processing guide. The Mental Health Association of Maryland is currently still working out some of the logistics with the council around delivering this curriculum to our Maryland instructors. So for those schools who become implementing sites or those organizations, we will work with you to get your instructors trained if necessary through existing classes being run at the council. Again, that application process, that the interest form and the client development manager, I'm sort of the client development manager in the current iteration of how the rollout is operating in Maryland. But you will, as an implementing site, need to identify the site coordinator who will have access to the learning management system that delivers the material, and who will then work with the council and the Mental Health Association of Maryland to identify those instructor candidates and to add and manage courses on behalf of your organization, and also to do the purchasing of the materials. Oops. Okay. So next steps is really to contact me at the Mental Health Association of Maryland, and we will work with you and your organization walking through the steps at the National Council for Mental Wellbeing to become that implementing site, and then we will work to train your designated instructors. So now what you've been waiting for is the question.